Hello everyone, my name is Jim, and I thought I would put together my review of the App Machine mobile development platform. The first thing I want to start off with is that this review reflects only my views of the product and may not support or agree with anyone else's. I have no affiliation with App Machine. I just decided to do this on my own to help some people out. With that, I thought I would start off with some of my background just to give people an idea where I was coming from, and then I'll talk a little bit about a problem I was having and what I did. I have spent my life in the technical field. I have 30 plus years in development and programming in a variety of different languages. I have 20 plus years in administration, including database networking and platform. The problem I had was that I had 0 years of experience in mobile development. And many years ago, some friends of mine and myself put together a business, and we built a website, and that website's been running for 10, 15 years. It's been running and no problems. But as the times have changed, with all the phones and technology, everybody wants to have their mobile app. They're not using the browsers nearly as much, and so over the past year or so, I've made a couple attempts at trying to build a mobile app for this thing. I've even tried to hire someone. Really haven't had much luck. There's quite a bit out there, but either it wasn't doing what I wanted to do, or it would just take too long to learn. And that was one thing I just didn't want to do. I didn't want to spend another 5 years learning a language for mobile development, and potentially because of the cross-platform, I need multiple languages, and so I had to find something that would help me out. And I did look at a handful of products. I've tried them, installed them, tried to work with them, and like I said, either they didn't do what I wanted to do, or they were just too hard. And so about 6 months ago, I bumped into a website that told me about App Machine, and so I thought I'd give that a try. And there was a few things that I really liked about it. One was that it had a drag and drop interface, which was nice. So it looked easy. I should say maybe easier. And the other thing is that it worked with web services. And the website I have and the business I have is very interactive. It reads data, it writes data, it manipulates it. It doesn't just show you something and look pretty and just kind of sit there. So the fact that it worked with web services was a big deal for me because I had that stuff already built, so I wanted to take advantage of that. The other thing it had was some design templates. With all my experience, I don't have any design capabilities. I just wasn't born with it. I can't make things look really good on a screen. I've had some help with the website in doing that. It's just not one of my strengths. So App Machine had some templates that I could use. That certainly, again, was a huge plus because there were some platforms out there I could drag and drop stuff, but I couldn't make it look good because they had no templates. So anyway, I'm going to go over some of the more complicated things because I think a lot of the easy things many people can figure out on their own. I think the real problem with that machine is that they just don't have a lot of self-help videos. There's not a lot of tutorials to get you going, and so that is what I thought I would help them out with. Again, I didn't ask anything from them, but I was just trying to save some people some time if they are looking for a mobile development platform and stumble across this video, and hopefully it'll just help them get going and not struggle the way I did. And again, I was struggling with more of the complex stuff because I knew what I wanted it to do. And I've worked with the support team, and they did a great job with as many tickets as I opened and responding and helping me. So that was another plus too. Anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly get you into what this thing looks like. And again, I'm going to go over more of the web services, the retrieving of data and the putting of data, and some of the tricks I've learned, as well as they've got a JavaScript piece in here that is excellent, and it can do some more of the advanced stuff that I was trying to get done. So I'll go over both of those. So here's what the App Machine web interface looks like. As you can see on the right hand side, we have a mobile device, looks like an iPhone, and on the left side you've got these blocks, and you've got some other components on the left side of that. These blocks are the drag and drop of App Machine. I can move things around very easily by just grabbing onto them and moving them around. I can add new blocks, and I can delete blocks. As you can see, for the most part, these blocks are almost one-to-one for a link to a screen or a screen itself. So as you can see, I've got social media here. I've got social media over here. Here I've got help. Over here I got help. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add a web service block. Again, this assumes that you have a web service already available. In my case, it returns JSON. Maybe yours returns JSON. And it's actually a lot easier now that I know what I'm doing than when I first started doing this. I kept thinking that I want to create a block or a screen and then attach the web service to the screen. And really what it is that the block itself, the web service block, is the screen. And so that took me a while to understand that concept. Maybe some of you would catch on to that a lot quicker than I am, or that I did, so maybe not as big of a problem. So really, for the most part, adding a web service is pretty simple. What we do here is we click on the block, and then we go to Pro, and then we click on the web service. And in my case here, they'll tell you a little bit about it. In my case, we're going to add this block, but mine's a custom web service. It means it's something I wrote somewhere else, so I got to give it a URL. And one problem we're going to have here is that the screen that the video capturing tool I'm using is I've made the screen too small and it doesn't allow me to change it. So we're kind of stuck. So some of the things that we normally see here on the screen are going to be missing, but we'll work through it here. So here's the custom web service. I can say what do I want to do? Retrieve data? Do I want to write data, etc. Here I'm going to retrieve data, so I'm going to do a get call, and I'm going to do this. So here's the PHP program that I wrote that returns JSON. Now the thing, like I said, that you can't see because the screen's too small is there are fields I can pass to this web service call, but I'm going to tab through them. You can't see them on the screen because the screen's too small. So as you can see, I'm going to have a name. These are the fields coming up here. Name, a default value, the type that the field is, and whether it's required or not. And so I'm going to use this field called UID. So I just gave it a name UID. It could be whatever you want to call it. And then I'm going to use this, and I'll tell you a little bit about that in a second. When users register, if you want users to register with your app, App Machine will assign them a unique ID, and I can pass that along to the web service call so that I know to retrieve a specific piece of data or write a specific piece of data. It's a way to, basically for me to use to limit or to identify a person. So anyway, I'm going to use this. This is a default value. Again, default means it's default, but it can be changed through if you've got some coding somewhere in here. But for now, so I've got a UID that's going to get passed to the get my account PHP. Here's the data type. As you can see, there's a bunch of them. You can leave it at text. If you change the data type, let's say to date and time, it's going to send it in a format that might be more appropriate for a date and time versus a text field. But anyway, so you've got all these things, and I'm going to make it required. And we're going to go with that. And now when I click this go button, what it's going to do is it's going to make a call to my web service. It's going to show me, if it was successful, all the fields that it came back with in JSON format and the values that were returned. Now this particular call only returned a single record, the demo user. And so it looks good. I'm going to say next. Now I'm going to give it a web service name. I'm going to call it get account web service. This is just the name of the service. In App Machine there is a section of just web services. It's not the name of the screen itself that the user would see when they're navigating. That's what this is. So I'm going to call this my account. And it's really that simple. Now I have a web service call, and here's the drag and drop. So I don't want it, so if I go back here on my screen, I'll see it put it down here at the bottom. Well, typically the social media and the help and that kind of stuff's towards the bottom of the screen, so I'm going to move this up. It's as simple as doing that, and now it's at the top. Again, I really like that drag and drop. One thing you're going to notice is that, so on this my account I can see my service call here, and I can make this disappear. Get a little bit more real estate on the screen. If this is called a list, and you can see this type up here is a list, and a list means it returns 1 or 0 for that matter, 0 or more records. If this returns say 50 records, what I would see is a screen. Right now I'm only showing the first name. Every record would just show the first name in a vertical fashion. So record 1's first name, record 2's first name, record 3's first name. But as it's only returning a single record, it skips this page and goes right to the details. Now the details look something like this. If I go here, it looks like this. Well, I didn't put this together. I mean, this is kind of the default layout of what App Machine does, And when you look over here, there's nothing on it. Here's really what the development piece of this is, and this is what it looks like. There's nothing here. Here's my choices. Here's my available options. I got all these fields that came back from this request. And so I could tailor this. Maybe I don't want to show everything that's kind of hiding over here on the right. Maybe I only want the first name. I'm going to give it a label, and I'll just say first name. I'm going to save that. Maybe I'll make the value bold, so I'll save that. And then we'll go back to data. We'll go email address, and then I'll pull if they're active, and I'll just go the state. So I'll put labels on these two, and I'll just say email address, and I'll show you what it looks like when I'm done. Make that bold. I'll call this is active user. Make that bold. And then the last one, oops, go right here, and I'll call this the state. And I'll make that bold. Now you change the font size and all that other stuff. Now what happens is, what that did is, now if I go here, what I used to see, now I see this. I've tailored this screen to just see the first name, email address, is the user active, and the state. Now remember, there used to be a lot more fields. There's a lot more choice. Well, there's a handful more. I got all these fields, and I'm not showing them all. I don't have to. Any child block of the web service call has access to these fields. And so if I create another block and it's a child block under here, like this screen block, and a screen block means to show the details of a list, of a record in a list, and there will be a next and a previous kind of little arrow to scroll through the list one at a time and show you the details that you want to see. If I have another a block under here, it will also have access to this if I want to, if I need access to these fields. But in a nutshell, this is really how easy it is to use a web service call for retrieving data on App Machine. It's that simple. And if for some reason I need to change, let's say I change my web service call to return more fields, I can go back and not have to start over. I can just have it recalculate the fields, and it would come back, and I'd be able to use those the next time I started demoing the app. So anyway, the next thing I'm going to show you, I think, is a little bit more complicated, and that is the actual putting or saving of the information based off of something retrieved, because it's a little tricky on what you got to do. It's not quite as straightforward, and that's the part I struggled with a little bit. I had to do some digging to figure out some pieces, and I'm going to go over that next. Okay, so what do we have now? We have a mobile application that calls a web service that retrieves information, and in this case, it's my account. It's going to have my first name, email address, my state, and a handful of whatever your mobile app needs to do. And at this point, what we want to do is allow the user to change that information and send it back to the back end. So we want to call a web service call that will save the information. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to block. We're going to go to Pro, Web Service, just like we did before. We're going to add a block, Custom Web Service. In this case, we're going to do a post, which does the save. Again, that's a piece of code that I wrote. And obviously, we need to pass in some values to this thing. We need to know what they're going to update. So we'll pass in a bunch of things and let the code behind the scenes do all the work and make sure it updates the information. So we got to pass in some values here, and that's in the same spot we had before. I'm going to add like 4 of them, and we're going to have UID again. Again, this identifies which account we're updating. It's a good way to do it. You can do it however you want. We make that a required field. We're going to have email, and I'm going to send this up as an email field. And this is nice because you know how mobile apps now, if you're entering just a number only field, it only shows the numbers on your phone. Just like with email, it'll show the little .com in the corner. So it's kind of nice to get that working with your application. I'm going to do is active, and that'll be a text. And again, I'll make it required, and we'll do state. I'll make that a text and required too. Now, they don't all have to be required, but if they are required, the mobile phone will show a little exclamation point, and if you don't supply the field, it'll prompt you to supply fields. So here we're going to click the next. Oops, I don't want to click next. I want to click the go. This go will validate that the actual web service call can be invoked. Now, what this thing will not do is if there's some complexity behind the scenes and something goes wrong after the web service call is made, there's no communication back and forth in that regard. I've had the web service return a true, but if something were to go wrong, it still would have invoked the web service call. There's no way to interact that way. If you need that functionality, you need to use the JavaScript components of App Machine, which I'll be talking about in another video. But anyway, so it did invoke the web service call. I'm going to save it. I'll call it modify account service. And the screen that they're going to see is called update account. Call it whatever you want. Put it down here at the bottom, but again, drag and drop coming to the rescue. I'll just move it up here. Right there. Okay. So now what we've got is, if I were to click this, and I see now a new tab at the top, update account. Boom. All right, here we are. So two things that you can notice right away that could be a problem. One is that it didn't supply any of the values retrieved when the user called the other web service call, and they're all text fields, which works fine, but it may not be the best choice. This is where the programming comes in, and this is where I struggled for a while and took some time to try to figure this out and had to play around and dig around with it. So let's go back and just check this out for a second. Let's go here, and let's move this out. Let's say I don't want the state to be a text field. I don't want someone to have to type in their state. So I'm going to actually get rid of that. And instead, I'm going to put in a drop-down list box. So I've got drop-down list box. I'm going to call it state as the label. I'm going to put in some values here. I'll put in Arizona. I'll put in Colorado. Put in Minnesota. And I'll put in Texas. Okay, great. I've got some values. If I were to look at this on the screen, what I would see, great, here's my list box. I can see it says make your selection, and here it is. Again, it's still not populated with what was read from my data store, but at least I have some choices here, and it's not a text field. So now what we got to do is we've got to somehow get this thing so that it'll take the values returned, or that were grabbed from the get service call, the data that was retrieved, and put it into, pick the right selected choice from the list box. So how I do that is I go into here, and so I wanted to use the state value that was returned from the data that was grabbed, and I want to compare it with the values here and pick the right choice. So I want to use state. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the source, and this is where a little programming comes in. Here's my list box right here, drop down, here's my choices. I want to say this, got to type this in, value equals data state. Now if the get service call called it state choice, then I would have to put the value state choice here. This needs to match the field that was used to get the data. And if I do that, and I take a look at this, so now what will happen when I go in here, pick Minnesota for me. That's perfect. Alright, the other half of the problem is I created a web service to write data out. I need to make sure that this field is bound to that writing web service call. And what I mean by that is this state, list box, has to populate this state because it's a required field, and even if it wasn't, you'd still want it to populate it if it was chosen. This state field that was from up here needs to populate this state when the web service write call is made. And how I do that, the easiest way for me to do this, and again I had to dig around to figure this out a little bit, is to take this and copy it into here, and then again go into the source, and what you'll see here, here's the text field I just dragged, is this thing called, let's go all the way over here, right here, and it's way off to the side. It's called binding. That field I need to take and I need to paste it right up here. So what I'm doing is I'm binding this drop down list box, its value, to this data provider 36 state. And data provider 36 is the app machine identifier for my write service call or my put service call. Now, how would I know that? Well, one way to do it is I dragged a field down there. Now I can see what it's called. There's another way to do it. Now I'm going to save this. There's another way to see. Over here, I can click developer. And in here I see my services. Here's my get, my retrieval of data. That's data provider 29. And my write is data provider 36. And as I add more services, I got to make sure I get the right one. Or you can grab the field and drag it in and see what it is and then just copy and paste it like I've done. So now I know that when I go to save this thing, that field will be bound. This state field that was retrieved and put into this list box is bound to this state field on the write service call. Now, we'll do one more. For example, is active being a text field, true or false? Maybe not the best choice again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete that. I'm going to put in a switch. I'll put that in there. And I'll call this label is my account active. And we'll do that. So that's just a label. I'm going to save that. Now, again, I need to populate this with the value with this is active. Now again, if I click on this, there's no value field here. So again, what I got to do, look at the data. There's a field that I retrieved called is active, and I need to supply that into this thing. So I'm going to go back into my source. Where's my switch? Here it is right here. And I'm going to say value equals data is active. I'm going to save that. So now, again, let's take a look. Go here. Is active is true, and it lit this up. If the if active is active is false, this would not be checked. Now, how do we know? I mean, how do I know what the date is? It could have just lit that up. I don't know what the date is. Well, again, if I go back to the get service call, which is the my account, I can actually click this data, and it'll show me the data it was retrieved, and I can see it's true, which matches the switch, which is true. So I know that it did the right thing. I'm going to go back here. Now again, all I've done is made it so that it picks the right value. I need to bind that to the is active over here. So again, right now it's not bound to anything. So what I'm going to do is, where's my switch? It's right here. Take my is active. I'm going to put it up here. I'm going to take a look at my source. Let's see, is active. I got to go find the binding. Here. I'm going to copy that. My switch is up here. It doesn't matter where I put it in the switch. I'm going to put it there, and I'm going to get rid of this text field that I just put in there. I could have, like I said, gone out of here and deleted it from the graphical interface as well. But now I know that this thing, when I go to save it, whether the user checks it or unchecks it, will be bound to this is active field and the put service. And that's some of the tricks that I've learned that would take some time to figure out otherwise if you're kind of playing around with this thing. So you got to kind of do, it's not all drag and drop. Much of it is, but on the put service calls or the writing components, and it makes them all text field, that's where things I think you really, you got to do a little bit of programming here. And hopefully with future releases that come out, maybe they'll make it a little bit more drag and drop-ish so that you don't have to do that. It would be nice, but that's why I'm putting this video together, to help save you some time. Hopefully that'll get you going, because again, once you do one set of screens like this, you can now just do these for a bunch of them and just create a bunch of service. So if I wanted to do one maybe that said emails, I would create a get emails web service call, and then I could do an update web service call, or maybe even a delete, put a delete button down. I can put two buttons down here, right? We've got, I can put buttons down here. I can put two buttons here. Now I got two buttons. Maybe one does modify, one does delete. And what these things do, I'm going to save that. I can see some of the logic of what these buttons are going to do by, here's the button execute. That was the original button. I can see it calls data provider 36. Now I just added a button, so I got to go out and come back in. There's button 1, the new button I just added, and it's in the order of the buttons that are over here. Let's see if I go to the screen here. So I got two buttons. Executes first, then button, Likewise, oops, wrong screen. There's execute, here's button 1. If I wanted to do something, I could say, okay, I'm going to do this, and if I had another web service call, I could say web service, and then I would invoke a web service. And then I could have, if it succeeds, do this. If it fails, I could go to this screen or show this message. So again, it's pretty neat. Most of it is drag and drop. Most of it's pretty easy. I like the templates. I like the design. Just the writing web service calls is a little bit of work. And once you figure that out, you can really put together a pretty good application here. Now, if you need a lot of interaction between the mobile application and the web service, meaning that the web service is going to return some information that you need to do and maybe even process, and then you can do some more work, a lot of coding. That's really where the JavaScript pieces come in. And as a lot of websites have a lot of JavaScript behind the scenes, it should be familiar to people, so that helps. I mean, and so you can code this very easily. But all in all, this product, I've been able to, once I started figuring this out, and again, I'll show you the JavaScript because I converted a lot of it to JavaScript because of the complexity that I had in my particular case. I was able to literally go from 0 to done in probably 4, 5, 6 months. And most of it was just because I was trying to figure, learn things as I went. But now that I know it, I mean, I can sit and crank these things out pretty fast because it's a lot of repetitive behavior. So anyway, this gives you an idea of how these web service calls go. I'm going to put another video together on how to use the JavaScript pieces. And so I hope you enjoyed this, and hopefully this helps you get your mobile app going. Hopefully it'll save you some time. Really good product, in my opinion. The support team is great, phenomenal. They answered my questions, helped me out. They just need a little bit of help with some of these types of videos to get people going. There may be other similar apps that are great too, but I'm just giving you my opinion of this one. A superb application for developing mobile applications. Highly recommend it. If you have some feedback or comments, certainly feel free to leave it. And I hope you've enjoyed this, and hopefully it'll save you some time. Thanks.